What a pleasure to meet you, Seamus. I've been listening to your music for a very, very long time. First of all, as a saxophone player. So I know all your crisscross records, and I know all the collaborations you did with various artists. There's a guitar player here in the Netherlands named Jesse van Ruler, which you played with.
Yeah, he's
So
amazing.
I remember, when I came to Amsterdam around 2006, we were listening to his records that you played on. I think it was I think with Samuel and organ.
Yeah, yeah. Samuel, Bill Stewart.
Yeah, exactly. So
Remember
this
that.
is when I kind of got to know you,
Yeah, yeah.
and you're playing on saxophone, and up to today I'm enjoying it very, very much.
Oh, thank you, man. Thank you.
And I kind of decided to go serious with the Eway around 2008, 2009,
Okay.
and I think by 2010 I came across some snippets, some clips of you playing on YouTube,
Okay, right. Yeah.
and I
I
think
sort of
some
started around the same time, I think.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
some kind of clips in Japan that you're singing with a vocoder.
Mm-hmm,
You
mm-hmm,
playing some, I think it was some sort of harmonizer kind of thing.
mm-hmm.
Um, and then I saw you play with Scott Kinsey, which is an artist that I adore.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's just incredible, but I really love his music. And I saw some clips of you guys playing in India somewhere.
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah.
And
We went to school together. We were at Berkeley
aha,
together. Yeah.
right,
So I've known him since we were teenagers, kind of. But
right.
he always, he lived in LA always. So we were I I never lived there. So we were always on opposite coasts. But,
Mm-hmm.
I was always a fan. Yeah. Always loved what he did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And then comes Superconductor,
Hmm.
and man, that album. I listened to that album, I think, for a whole year. I
Wow.
love
Wow.
that album, and
Oh, thank you.
there's so many questions I would love to ask you about it.
Sure, sure.
And what a band you have there.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah,
And
it was one of those rare moments where there wasn't really like budget restriction so much. I mean, well, within reason, of course, but it was more of a budget than any other record that I had done.
hmm,
So I was able to like have special guests and have an ensemble and do all these. So it was like, oh, well, what else can we do this? So originally the idea though was to do something with Scott. That was my original idea. It was like I had been getting into the EWI and getting it and always, loved Scott's stuff and wanted to do something just kind of collaborating with him. That was the general idea. So, but it kind of had a life of its own. I started trying to write for it and had some things. And in the beginning, actually, the writing was kind of slow and a little bit difficult. I think I spent like a couple of months of like not really liking anything I had.
hmm,
And and then some of the things as I wrote them, I mean, they kind of maybe they weren't Iwi tunes, and of course I wasn't going to play Iwi on the whole record, but then some of the songs, ended up going in a more just orchestral kind of direction.
hmm,
And so perhaps if it was like an LP or if it was vinyl, they would have been two separate records maybe,
hmm,
but yeah, it was certainly fun. Unfortunately, we didn't get to do too many gigs with that band, but
hmm,
it was fun making it, and it was a departure from for me for more like doing thinking of it more in a more like kind of working Scott's way of like more production and more it's a more like kind of instead of a bebop date where you just kind of record it
hmm.
and then like that's it, you never think about it again. It was like the recording was like the first part of it, and then it was like kind of trying to build some tracks and stuff. And so yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Wow,
um,
amazing. So maybe
but
we'll get back to that in a minute.
sure,
So
sure.
maybe a question, the obvious question that I ask everybody,
Yeah.
but it's always interesting to hear is how and why did you pick up the Iwi?
Well, I remember talking with Scott. Scott introduced me to Steve Tavaloni, and I began to chat with Steve. And at one point, I'm trying to remember exactly when it was. I think it was shortly after Mike Brecker died. It was like, that was like a sudden shock. I was like, oh my God, what, like, he was like, remember hearing he was sick and then he died. And I always thought that, when I would see him play that, it was like, that was his instrument. Like I was never gonna touch. I mean, he made the impossible look so easy on it. And it seemed really, really complex. And it was something that like, I wasn't sure that I was going to get into, in the 90s and the maybe the early 2000s. I had a band with Chris Cheek, and we played, like saxophone through lots of guitar pedals and stuff. And that was a lot of fun. It's a lot, like, I really enjoy the kind of electronic aspect of music. And I love sound processing, and the way that sound processing brings, like, it's kind of like, the spice, or it brings like, it brings another dimension to the sound, so I always liked that. And I kind of was like tired though of carrying around a lot of pedals and carrying around a lot of heavy stuff. And and I remember, Scott saying, you should get an Eway, right? You should talk to Steve, you should get an Eway, I was like, well, let me try this on, I don't know if it was at all related to I mean, because I certainly was um admired Michael Brecker a lot, and loved his music. And I remember seeing him as a teenager play when his first solo tour came out. And I remember I went to the sound check, and he was playing in a big theater in Vancouver where I grew up. And during the sound check, something like, he had a huge like rack of stuff, and it was and he had like some tech people helping him. But during the sound check, all of a sudden something went wrong, and it was like it was like a bad, it was like some cable was patched wrong or something. So all of a sudden it was a deafeningly loud, like kind of feedback in this huge thing with it was a huge sound system. It was more like a rock club, So it was like, wow. And it's like, and he was actually kind of like angry. He was like, what the hell's going on? You didn't see him angry very often, but I, so I had, this, of course he was like sort of, I think everybody who played the Eway at that point looked up to him. He was like the commander in chief of the instrument. And so I didn't think about it really, but I think when I first got it, I started to like just maybe like try to practice it. I kind of was like, I mean, I couldn't really play it at all when I first picked it up. It was like, wow, just playing a C scales like was kind of difficult. So, but I quickly, like, you start to make progress kind of quickly, and just actually being able to play with headphones was like kind of a pretty fun thing. It's like not something a saxophone player has. They're a luxury, Guitar players can always play with headphones. Keyboard players can play with headphones, but a saxophone player, you generally can't. And so even trumpet players have that silent brass, they can put that mute in and stuff. So for me, it was like, it was a kind of a tool to practice a little bit. And I just sort of, it renewed my energy, my interest in practicing a little bit. Just like, I was like, oh, I want to like practice the cello suites or practice some Bach and just get into like playing, and I didn't think about even playing it in public or anything. And I didn't really know where to start. Steve tried to help me, show me some basic things. And we had a few like telephone conversations and some video chats and whatnot, where he would try to just show me some of the basic stuff, like, here's the filter, control the filter, you can control the volume, and some basic stuff like that. I was trying to control like Omnisphere and some synths like this. And I had, like kind of limited success, like, and I would say that I was constantly always changing my setup, but it was mostly I think, I mean, I liked the internal sounds, the way they responded, and I had the Patchman sounds, and I thought I kind of started modifying them a little bit, although I found it like a little bit tedious, difficult to modify some of the with the software and stuff. But I did,
The Visex one.
yeah. It was a little bit raw. It was like it wasn't so
Yeah,
easy. But
I
I
know.
made actually, and I don't even know where they are, but I made like 30 of my own the 4000. I made like 25 or 30 patches for the 4000. And but then I kind of, I kind of like I um, I kind of was more interested in the sound possibilities that the software synthesizers had and stuff like that. So I kind of continued along, and it was always a process of just a lot of experimentation and trying new things. And so I never stuck with anything for a real long time. I would try things and sometimes they just wouldn't work, or they would seem to work at first, but then it would seem to be like too complex or too complicated.
Hmm.
I think there's an art to like having a setup that is like, that has a certain amount of flexibility and interesting sounds, but is not overly complicated to work.
Hmm.
And so I mean, I remember at one point I was like trying to use a second computer to do like MIDI processing, and I was using it Ethernet cable. I was like, oh, you can send MIDI over the Ethernet cable. Wow, doing crazy, just trying crazy stuff that and eventually like all of those things like kind of fell by the wayside. But I think I got experience. I was trying different DAWs, like hosting programs, and because I knew that Brecker used Logic, so I was like, let me try Logic. I had a Mac at the time, and I just couldn't take to Logic for some reason. I didn't find the environment a friendly environment. It seemed kind of like old school or something. It seemed
Yeah.
like not as modern in that. And I was trying Ableton, but Ableton sometimes is not so friendly for. Ableton is good at certain things, but it's not so friendly for like live performance of soft synths. It can be tricky sometimes trying to control the instruments and change patches and change sounds and things like
Mm.
that. So I finally settled on this one program called Usine. It's like this French software, and I don't know if we can do screen sharing in this or not, but
Oh yeah, most definitely you can.
uh, should I try to share my screen? Let me see. I can try to share. Yeah, I have it up here. So, okay, let me just see. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Hmm.
So this is kind of a cool, it's an interesting program. It has, I won't go in like super detail, but these are just little racks of synths.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I found what's been working for me is I like Dune a lot. It seems to be like a really responsive. I know there's more stuff to try. I just haven't really tried it. I feel
Yeah,
like I
there
still,
are endless possibilities.
yeah. And
I
so it's like you find something that works. I believe that it's good to just kind of stick with it and try to get the most out of it.
Yeah. No,
Um,
I agree.
but so this program, it's kind of like a main stage combined with like a Max MSP or something. So
Right.
it has a kind of a performance oriented kind of thing, but you can also kind of go in and like get hardcore with MIDI and routing and stuff like that. It's a This is the splash screen here. You're still seeing this, right? Yeah. It's an interesting program. It's not very popular, but I started using it in the beginning when I was using it because I switched to a PC at one point, and I was kind of curious about it, and I was trying lots of different things, and then I finally tried it, and I liked the way you could really customize things,
Okay.
and it had a kind of a nice like the grid thing is pretty cool. I like that. You can
What do you do exactly with the grid?
you can change your patches. It's almost like little snapshots. So here's one
Okay.
setup, and then you can just change to another setup. You can
Okay.
also have stuff changing in time in the grid. So you could have things
Hmm.
changing in different kinds of.
I assume that you play completely on software.
Well, no, like I think that I have tried some hardware things, and I used to have a Nord micro modular. That was
Mm-hmm.
actually kind of an interesting little box. I remember it was kind of like virtual analog. You could go in and use an editor and draw, like have little cables, patch cables that would do
Mm.
things in a kind of modular way. It was pretty cool, and it had a nice little sound. It was kind of portable. I used that for a while. Um, it actually had a cool vocoder in it too.
Oh.
I want to get it. I still have it's in New York. I don't have it at the moment, but and I bought like because I remember seeing Swana and his Evolver. So I was like, oh, let me try the like Dave Smith. Yeah, there you go. The Tetra. Let me try that. And I
Yeah.
bought the Tetra, but I could never really get it to like respond. I don't know if you ever tried it, but I never really could get it to respond exactly the way I wanted. I never bought an Evolver,
Mm.
but I know the
Well,
Evolver.
I use the Evolver as my main one of my main synths, and
Yeah.
I coupled that actually with some other synths, mainly the Mofo,
Oh, okay.
the smaller version of the Evolver,
Yeah.
and the Matrix 1000.
Oh, okay.
So these are like the three hardware synths, and I actually own. And this is actually a very interesting story. I own the 1000, the first EWIs,
Oh, yeah, yeah. I've seen you play that.
the
Yeah.
original Akais.
Yeah, that's
And
cool.
man,
It's
this
great, right?
is the thing.
Wow.
If you're into old school analog quality and style of playing, because it's CV, it's not Midi.
Yeah, yeah.
So you have to go. You have a CV cable that goes into the module, and from there you can Midi out if you want. But the connection between the instrument and the module is completely CV, and that feel is a feel which is very raw on one side, but it actually feels more like a saxophone because the
Yeah,
EWI itself, has that that really light resistance, which is sometimes can be too light and can
right.
glitch, right?
Uh-huh.
But the
Uh-huh.
1000, it's like a saxophone. It's like a saxophone with a hard reed. You really have to like work the thing
Mm,
to
mm.
make it, to make it sound. But the quality of that
Can you
module,
adjust
yeah,
the amount of CV? Like the amount, if you sent more signal, it would probably be like a easier,
yeah.
softer.
I mean, it's basically it carries the same functionalities and same knobs as the 4000. Let's put it this
Mm-hmm.
way.
Mm-hmm.
But it still feels, or maybe mine, I don't know, because I mean these are old instruments. Um, Feels that it's still much more heavy,
Mm-hmm.
much more resistant than the 4000.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes it's a good thing. Sometimes you want to have that because then if you're playing in a loud or even in a jazz context, if you play like swing on the 1000,
Mm-hmm.
it kind of feels much more saxophonish. Let's put it this way, maybe.
Yeah, well, the immediacy of CV is always going to
Yeah,
beat MIDI. So
yeah, that's true.
I got into I have this you can't see it here, but I have a Novation Peak here,
Mm,
and I
mm,
got that because Johann's synth
right.
has a CV output in it. So and yeah, CV is like that's another world. I basically I've I yeah, like I said, like you said, I was using a lot of software for a long time, but I was like, let me try some hardware. I just want to see what that's like, and I'm just getting into the Peak now, but CV is an amazing thing. Does the CV cable on the 1000 like come out the bottom or something or?
No, well, the original cable, no, it comes like the 4000. It comes from like if this is the instrument, it comes from here, and goes
Oh,
here.
okay,
But
okay,
what actually I did, I saw it somewhere on one of those Facebook groups. People were, I think even I saw Chase Byard, I think from there.
okay.
He had his Eway kind of fixed with a different cable because with a VGA cable, a screen cable.
A
Um,
VGA
a
cable?
VGA cable, yeah.
Okay.
just a VGA cable, and the reason for that is because these cables are, they're non-existent. I mean, this plug that it has is super rare. So in case
Yeah.
that cable goes away or gets broken, who knows what? That's it.
Okay. So he had somebody like
So
modify
I
it.
think he did some. I think maybe Patchman. I'm not sure. Somebody did it for him, and then I saw it, and I said, "Hey, man, I'll try to do it for my own ones,
This is a
because
1000. He also has
one
a
thousand,
1000. Yeah.
yeah." And
Hmm.
man, it works. I'm
Wow.
using a VGA screen cable
That's great.
to plug
And
my
it sends
EWI,
CV.
and it's on CV because apparently, according to the schematics of the electronic, it's the same type of cable.
Oh, interesting.
So
Is it possible to do wireless VGA?
I actually no. You mean wireless CV?
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but I do have wireless audio. Actually, I
Yeah.
just got it a few days ago. Um, these guys, I don't know if you can see it, XViv.
I don't know that.
Um,
The wireless audio interface.
just a wireless. It's just like these two. They look like these two shells.
Oh, okay.
If you want to
Okay.
use like internal sounds.
On the 4000. Yeah.
Um, Man.
You still use your 4000 too. So you bring like multiple EWIs to a gig.
Well, it depends on the gig.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mainly play the 4000 and the 1000, but the 4000 is more sorry, more common that I will use that because
Okay.
then I can play my hardware,
Hmm.
or I just go completely analog in certain situations and I'll just play the 1000 with its
When you
module.
play the 1000 though, you have to use the sound module that comes with it, and you can't go out into any other yeah.
That's the thing. That's the thing. You
That's
can
what's
only
nice about this, having this CV out, is because there's actually kind of a few synths that have the CV, so
yeah.
it's pretty interesting. I would have to like I think when my computer, I don't know, it had something to do with me. Somehow the program lost contact with the audio interface. I don't know why, but yeah, it's nice to go to hardware and to have a little bit of peace of mind that the stuff is just going to work. I've had, one of my problems has been over the years has been, that I change my setup too much, because sort of the gigs were sort of infrequent and always changing. And so there wasn't like a steady gig. And so I would always be like trying something new, trying it for the first time, setting up controllers, forgetting exactly which control, and so there were always these things that happened. And also a couple of times I had some like really like, like when you're putting your entire gig on your computer and everything working right, and you're trying to do like crazy stuff. Like I was trying to play with like, like looping sequences and stuff like that, and having the drummer play along with a looped sequence, and me controlling the sequence of stuff like that. It was complicated. And so I remember one show where all of a sudden I had this like error message, and I'm at the sound check and I get an error message. It's like, can't use the program. And it's a cryptic error message, just like a PC error message, just like, blah, 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 not working, and so it turned out that what happened was I was using I was using a program to convert um, like to convert, if you use the program in 32-bit or 64-bit. So I was trying to no, what is it now? It's like a memory thing. Like it's more modern programs have a different memory, like, plugins that run in, I'm not explaining it exactly perfectly. You know what I mean? Like the early VSTs and earlier plugins and the computer programs ran at a certain kind of, I think it's 32-bit, right? And then it switched.
No, it switched to 64. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So this was a bridge. It's called JBridger, and it was a program that bridged some things
that were working on that.
that were working so it bridged because I wanted to use in 64-bit because I had access to more memory. You have access to more RAM in 64-bit. So it crashed, and in the sound check, I'm like, oh my God, like I can't. So it was super stressful. So those kinds of moments, you know, I've had a few of those, you know. Even on a recent gig, I had all this cool stuff set up, and I practiced. You know, I was trying to do it was like a new setup, and during the gig, the first tune where I was trying to do all this fancy stuff, it didn't work. Like all of a sudden, I got off, and I couldn't play the song basically. So like those kind of situations, you know, you want to like. The way to avoid that is really by really having like it's kind of like flying an airplane, I think. And so you have to have like fail-safe, more than one fail-safe backup. You know, if something doesn't work, like you know exactly how to fix it, and you have a quick way to like exit strategy, you know. When I played with Antonio's band, Antonio Sanchez, and you know, I had like to play some like Chase does you know, playing it every night and having a lot of gigs, you can start to relax actually with the computer, because when it works so many times in a row and you're not changing anything, it basically is there and it just kind of works. But yeah, I'm curious about the hardware now too. I'm going to investigate this peak.
How do you find the peak? Because a lot of people are talking about it these days.
I like it. I mean, there's a few things that I have to figure out, but the basics of it, like I really like the CV on it. I think it's like the CV is amazing, you know. And that, like you said, like it's really like kind of like the kind of response is, you can't get that with Midi, you know. That's just another. And the fact that it's, you know, well, the oscillators are actually not analog, but it's this thing called the Oxford oscillator, which is, I think it's digital but sampled at such a high rate that it's that it sounds very warm still.
Okay.
So it does like wavetable and kind of it's a bit like Dune in a way, but it's and you can load your own wavetables in, so that's kind of interesting. It has pretty flexible. I haven't really spent that. I've only spent like maybe 2 or 3 evenings of trying to program for it, but I already have gotten like sounds that I think are nice, usable. Even a basic sound sounds great. Like just
would you mind to later to record maybe a short
sure
demo, just
yeah.
And maybe a stupid question. I'm curious, how big is it?
It's a little bit big. Like it's like I can't really move the. Okay. It's like
okay.
But maybe what I can do is I could use a different camera if I make like a little video for you.
Yeah.
That you can.
Sure. I'm just curious for my own, because I'm
it's kind of big. Like it's it's kind of like a small pedal board or something like that.
Okay.
I bought actually a case for it, you know. So it's a little bit of a commitment, but it's I think the tricky thing that I'm gonna need to figure out is just the best way to take advantage of the fact that it's, you know, has multiple voices. So getting like polyphony into it. How do you do the polyphony without using a computer?
Yeah, well, that's the $1 million question.
Yeah, that's now Johan built some stuff into his Eway, which is cool.
I know.
And it has, you know, it has some, but the stuff you can get on the computer is like so much deeper. So it's like, okay, like I feel like I have one idea that there's a company that makes a box. Oh, now I'm going to forget what it is. Basically, it can host Max for Live devices inside of it. And it's like
boombox, BOME, something like that.
I don't know. Yeah. I'll figure. I'll look that up and
awesome.
But yeah, that's the one thing. At the moment, I'm just using like, because I made some harmonizers in this program in Ucine, and they work well with SoftSense, but but I would love to be able to take the power off the computer and just use.
Yeah, to have everything on. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. I
So
had, by the way, a great experience with the Prophet 6 back in the day. That's almost
mhm,
4 years ago when it came out.
mhm.
Not for polyphony, unfortunately. You could, but I didn't do it. But I used it just as a sound source, and it was amazing.
Yeah. I heard great things about it too.
Amazing.
Yeah. But you didn't. You were just borrowing it, or it wasn't yours?
I borrowed it from another Johan, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Probably you know him or you don't. The guy that wrote the Midi harmonizer software.
Oh, yeah. We used to. I
Yeah,
was using it for a
and
little while.
he brought it over. I did a very actually an album that I'm very proud of, with a guitar player, a singer, a drummer, and Eway, no bass.
Oh, cool.
And we are like me and the guitar player. Maybe you know him as a guy named Iran or Evan. Maybe you know
Okay.
him. Um, his good friend lives here in Amsterdam as well.
Oh, cool.
Uh, Johan came to the studio and he gave me his Prophet 6, and I was like, whoa, man, that was like a real game changer because the Prophet 6 is a fully VCO'd instrument, somewhere like the 1000, so voltage control oscillators. It's MIDI, but the engine is voltage.
Mm-hmm.
So again,
Kind
the
of
quality
analog.
of the sound, the
The
fatness of
analog
the sound.
oscillators.
Yeah, man, it's
Analog
like
oscillators.
you know,
Yeah, there's one thing that I notice is like there's no aliasing. There's no like, when you play up high, a lot of times with software instruments, unless you're using like Diva and it's like really cranked to like God, they have a God like
mm-hmm.
resolution. There's like a setting that's like, divine or God like or something. But basically, like, they sound okay in the kind of the middle range, but then sometimes when you go high, it's like it gets it's
Mm,
not pure anymore.
no, yeah.
So that's one of the first things I notice about like the peak and or just an analog. I also bought like my first little foray into it was the Uno. I bought one of those
Oh, what's that?
IK Multimedia has a synth called the Uno,
Okay.
and it's really cheap. It's like only a couple $100 or something, and it's
Okay.
actual it's analog.
Hmm.
So the oscillators sound great. They don't alias. They have a nice, a nice tone. Like the tone is really nice
Mm-hmm.
compared to the peak. Well, it's $200 versus 200 euros versus 1,200 euros or 1,300 euros. But you can't control the volume so easily. You can only control the filter. So at like if you're trying to play like more subtle and delicate, you notice like there's a moment where it's
Yeah, it
like
just goes. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
it's not like smooth.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just the way the routing is a little bit limited. You can't like actually control the volume of the oscillator and the filter. So
Wow.
but it still works. It actually, I mean, for entry level like actual analog oscillators and analog filter, it's for $200. And if you were playing like maybe harder and like you wouldn't notice it so much, if you're trying to play a ballad or something, maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, the purity of the oscillators is pretty amazing. It's that's definitely. I mean, the
Amazing.
software is there's a lot you can do. The software is also really. Uh, I mean, I'm glad that I have messed around with it, and it is a little bit hard for me to let go of it. And probably I'm still gonna have a computer there at this point anyway for MIDI processing until I find a way to like maybe get rid of that. But in terms of like at home and in a studio environment, the computer is already there anyway. Bringing it on a gig, yeah, it's like it's just one. It can throw, you know,
Oh,
it
I
can
hear
it
you.
can cause problems if unless you're careful and you really check everything and you're really,
Mm-hmm.
I think the secret is to like, and it's not something that I've been so good at is to be really consistent with it, to have a very consistent setup that you're not changing all the time and that you test a lot and you're dedicated to.
Right.
Then it can kind of work if you really know your machine. But the computer is a complicated machine with a lot of possibility for error. So, but
Mm-hmm.
there's, I mean, in the last like 15, 20 years of the explosion of what you can do with a computer is just is astounding, you know. So it's like
True.
it's great for Eway in a way, you know.
No, no, absolutely. I'm also giving it now. For me, it
More
was like,
try.
I was like, anti-computer for many years,
Mm-hmm.
and in some way I still am, but
Mm-hmm.
I decided also to maybe give it a second shot. So I'm acquiring now all the plugins and everything and
What
trying.
have you been, what has been working successfully for you?
Well, there's a couple of obvious ones, a couple of non-obvious ones. So actually, I start with the non-obvious ones. There's one called the IFW. You know this one?
Sorry, what?
IFW.
Oh, IFW. Who makes it?
So here's the thing. I think it's like a sort of a beta program made by like an engineer from Chord. He
Okay.
just opened a Facebook group, and he said, and it's all in Japanese, so you have to figure out how to get to the right, how to get to reach the files. But he made a sort of a analog for oscillator, virtual analog synth for Eway, which is just ready for Eway.
Oh, wow.
No routing needed.
Wow. And it responds great.
And responds from zero.
Wow. Great.
And I'm having a lot of fun with it.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, so that's in terms of, like, if I compare it to the 1000, I can kind of recreate certain sounds with that 80 to up to 80-90% of it, kind of.
Great.
Um, I
Without the
have
CD, without the CD.
Well, obviously, yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, but
yeah.
it responds well.
Responds pretty well.
Because it's already made for Eway, so it takes a
Yeah,
lot of edge out of the whole,
yeah, yeah.
programming thing.
Great. That's awesome.
What else do I have in my arsenal? I have the ES2, from Logic. I use Logic, so
Okay, right.
I have some stuff for that. I have Tyrell from Eway, which is
Oh,
the
okay, yeah.
freeware version.
Have you tried Dune?
I haven't tried Dune, no. No.
Dune,
Maybe that's
Dune,
something to get into.
it has a very snappy, it's snappy filters. I remember even just Dune 1, when I tried that, the filter was so snappy. It was like, oh, wow, like it responds quickly, you know?
Mm,
And then they kept improving a lot of things, you know? So
cool.
it's possible to get good sounds with that, I think.
Great.
Yeah.
I own a VL70M, so
Oh, yeah.
when I was looking for a software, I found Respiro. That's
Yeah, yeah. I bought Respiro, but I haven't got into it. I bought it and then checked it out and haven't spent time with
yeah.
it.
So that's also a great physical modulating
Have you
emulation.
made some of your own patches in that in
Yeah,
Respiro?
yeah, and it's
Yeah,
actually, the interface is very easy
yeah,
and very friendly, and again, another synth that responds from zero. Because for me, I mean, that's very important because I play a lot of Eway in low dynamical situations where I have to play a lot of
right.
soft stuff. So
Yeah,
for me,
no.
that's really, really important. Um, with hardware, of course, I managed to do it, but with software, it was always a challenge for me.
Yeah, there's just some sense that just this filter doesn't work.
Yeah.
It doesn't respond in the right way, or there's,
Hmm.
it's like, I don't know. It seems like to me that, 10% of all synths really kind of work decent or well. It's like a lot of them,
Yeah.
like it may be a really cool synth for a keyboard player, but they're just, they just don't. Like Omnisphere to me is a little bit like that. It's a little bit, the filter doesn't really respond quite right. It's
Hmm.
not really, the sound sources are incredible, but
True.
Contact is great though. Contact
I
really,
know. That's another thing I got into because as part of these interviews, I became really good friends with Judd, and
yeah. Yeah,
we
I
would
went
just
and hung out in Judd's place in LA, and we would like
wow.
just hang and I
Yeah,
spent a couple of days there. And
incredible. Yeah, what to say?
he's a contact, yeah, he's a contact guru. He's just really, he is a really interesting example of like really focusing on one thing and just like being a
Yep.
master of that,
Correct.
And
Right.
when he shows me all the patches and the crazy setups he has, I mean, you could only do what he did or does by being so dedicated to that one program. Like if you kind of are always switching and stuff, you can't master anything.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's that's pretty amazing. But I was always I think Contact is amazing, and it certainly has a place. And playing samples is a very cool way
Yeah.
to get interesting sounds.
No,
And
I
having
agree.
and
I
that
agree.
filter is really great. The
I
filter
agree. I agree.
filter has a really great control if you set it up right. But for me, actually, I also want to play more of a synth. And playing a sample of a synth to me is not as doesn't feel as good. It's not as
Of course.
snappy or not as even and not as you know.
For me, it's more about the way I like to say it. My problem with plugins that they always sound the same.
Mm.
While if I play hardware, it never sounds the same every time I switch the machine on.
Oh, I see. You mean like just turning it on and not turning it
Yeah,
off
like
and turning it
you
on
have to.
again
It's
sounds a
always
little different.
different. Yeah, and that's even the beauty of it, because that's like picking up your saxophone and warming up for 20 minutes until you're there.
Mm. Why do you think it's sounding different?
I think, well, this is my perception. I don't think it sounds
Okay.
different, but I think that when
Feels that way.
it
It's just
feels
more
this way.
alive. The sound is more alive.
Yeah, 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 I would
Yeah,
say so. Yeah,
yeah,
I mean, for sure on the 1000, man, when I open it up, it's like, guys, I need a couple of minutes here.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Something is, it's
Yeah,
just like that. And
yeah.
so plugins to me, they always sound like, they sound good, but they don't sound as fat and expressive, and they never surprise you like a hardware will surprise you. But that's kind of on the same page of it always sounds the same versus it never sounds the same.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, I think we're at a time, I think, where software has caught up a lot, and it's like changing a lot. And there are some people now, there are some like great, like, let's say, music producers who do a lot with just software. And they
true,
make amazing tracks with just software, all mixed,
true,
mastered, the sounds, everything coming out of the computer.
true.
And so like that was not possible. I mean, I remember I remember in 1996, I was going on the road and I bought one of my first laptops, and I went to Sam Ash Music and I said, "Do you guys have like something that could work inside my computer there where I could have like some basic synthesizer sounds or something?" They were like, no, that's not really possible. I mean, there's this one thing called cyber sound, but it doesn't really work." It's like that was 1996. Like
Wow.
basically there was no like software instruments in computers.
Mm.
And I think I remember I bought a Korg oh, what was that, 05 RW, or it was like a little
Yeah,
Korg.
yeah, yeah. I know, like a slash thing, like a zero
Yeah,
one slash W.
yeah, I don't have it anymore, but
Yeah.
like sound for you had to like there was no so it's tremendous what has happened in just you know 20
20
years.
years. Yeah.
Yeah, like even a little more, 25 years, 24 years. So I mean, the trend is going to continue. There's going to be
Sure.
amazing software instruments, and the computer power will just keep increasing. And perhaps, like even things like CV like MIDI is going to this next gen MIDI 2.0. There's going to be like much higher resolution.
Mm-hmm.
Even like with the Moog app, the Model 15.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I have it. You talking about the Model D?
Yeah, Model D.
Yeah.
Is that the no, the Model D is the Mini Moog, right? There's a Mini
Yes.
Moog, and then there's
Correct.
another one. There's another one. Yeah. Anyway, I think they both have 14-bit MIDI control of filters. So if you're Eway, if you have the 5000, you can send out 14-bit high resolution MIDI and control the filter in high resolution. And it's like there's a difference. I mean, I noticed that. I was like, wow, I have never like used 14-bit MIDI, high resolution MIDI on a filter before, but I feel that. I noticed that.
Mm.
And that was something I first encountered with that Moog. There's not a lot of soft synths that do that have 14-bit control of the filter.
No. No.
Not even a lot of controllers. So I mean, we're still like that's coming. That'll
Yeah.
be around the corner. So, and the whole like physical modeling thing. That's I think there's going to be some interesting stuff for
Sure.
sure. Yeah.
Back to your album, Superconductor. That first track, that first sound you play. What is that sound? Where is it coming from?
The first sound.
It's like a sort of a flute type of.
Man, I don't remember actually.
It's like this. The melody is it's when you go with this.
Okay. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
What is
Uh-huh.
this?
Oh yeah. You know what that is? Oh. What is that called? I don't use it anymore. Um uh, I can't remember. I have to look it up.
Okay.
Um but it had, I remember it was a kind of a like a sound that had a certain kind of like a vocal formant filter. It was a soft synth,
Mm-hmm.
and it had a kind of a vocal formant filter, and it didn't play so nice with the computer. Like it was really slow to load, and it was kind of a pain in the ass, you know. But I did have a few good sounds with it, so I kind of stuck with it. But I've since like kind of I haven't been using that. I haven't used that lately, so. But oh yeah, I can. I'll maybe you'll have to put a footnote or something. You know,
Yeah, sure, sure.
I remember. I remember. I can sort of remember the company that makes it, but I have to look it up, and I
Just
haven't
look it up.
used
No
it.
worries.
I haven't used it in, yeah, I don't know, several years, so I can't
Well,
remember
that
now.
sound really, really, really took me, man. That
Oh,
that
cool.
that
Yeah.
particular patch really was for me was like, because even there's a video of you playing it before the album came out, and I
Okay.
think
Not the same sound.
it is the same sound.
Oh, okay.
But for
Yeah.
some reason, the title of the song was different, but it was
Oh,
the same
okay.
song.
Yeah. Right. I changed the title. Yeah. Yeah.
And wow, yeah, man, that particular sound was for me.
I'll tell you. Yeah, I'll tell you what it is. When I have to just kind of like do a little research, I probably have to just like do some Google searches or something, or
Yeah,
look in my old computer. I don't even think it's in my new computer,
yeah,
so I have to look in my old one. I could find
cool,
it though. Yeah. Um,
amazing, amazing,
yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. So we're just going to add this little segment because I wanted to show you just a couple things that I find interesting for myself that might be worth sharing. Um, the host software that I use for the Eway, I think, is not so well known. Not too many people know about it, but I think it's kind of interesting, and it can do a lot of interesting things, and certainly works with the Eway. And also to share that, you know, the instrument, just to see somebody talking about Johann Berglin's new rad, which is a great instrument. And also the Peak, the Novation Peak, which I just got pretty recently, and I'm kind of excited about. It's the first time that I've tried the CV output, and that's kind of a new frontier for me, so it's exciting. I like it. So first off, yeah, the Johann's Eway is great. I'm actually this white cable is just for power because I forgot to charge the battery last night, so I need to use it for power. And this is the CV cable. I modified these handles a little bit because I felt that it was slipping when I was holding it, so I made a way to kind of catch, to keep it more firmly in my hands. I'm still kind of working on this design. At the moment, it's a little bit too much on the knuckle, which I think limits the finger movement a little bit, so I'm going to try to bend it backwards to the side, but that's another project. So on the floor, let me just show you what I have on the floor here. I have a Novation Peak on the left. Then I have there's a plus pedal and a plasma. That's a kind of a distortion type of thing. Next to that, the white pedal is the Plethora X5. It's just a multi-effects from TC Electronics. It's pretty cool. And then there's a looper next to that. It's the Eros looper. And the Beat Buddy there is not really making any noise, but it's helping with the sync. Seems to help with the sync to Ableton. And then to the right of that is a 12-step, a MIDI foot controller by Keith McMillan. Okay, so let's go to here's Usain here. So this is just one of my more favorite synths. Basic one to use is Dune. I should say that I'm routing the audio from the computer back out into the effects chain that I have, and then back in. So I have both the peak and the software synthesizers going through a chain that I can control with my feet. I used to use, you know, a lot of software effects, and there are a lot of amazing ones, but it's you have to be very just controlling them and setting up the control for them it can be a little bit tedious, but it's certainly possible to do. I used to do that. Some special effects that are only in software are worth the trouble. But I like having just, I also like just having kind of simple hardware type things. So anyway, this is just a basic patch in Dune. It's sawtooth wave, you know. I find like if I have a good saw, it goes a long way. It's a good basic starting point for a patch and to check the playability and to check how it responds and that. In Usain, the way I change patches is I use this thing called the grid here, and you can put here on the side are my various devices or synths, and then I can place them up here, just kind of drag them, or you can drag them here from this window. And you put them in a kind of a timeline, and you can see this timeline here. It's kind of, let me zoom in a little bit on it. You can see this best saw. So that's a preset. You can actually drag presets in here too, so it can change presets for you. And then I advance through I advance through it with these buttons here, which are MIDI controllable. So it's you can step through it. You can also, you know, have your favorite ones if you want to send a MIDI message or a keystroke or something to your favorite parts of the grid. You can jump directly to something. Yeah, let's try another sound. This is something I made in Usain. This is a rotator. It took me a while to kind of figure out how to make this, and underneath you can see this is where Usain is a bit like Max MSP or something. It's kind of like main stage plus Max, and you get there's a browser where you can have these kind of modules. So you could go into MIDI here, and you could drag modules and cable things together. There's even, you know, you can bus the audio, you can filter the MIDI, you can do all kinds of things, and so it's quite extensive. And that's a lot of fun. Just about anything you can think of can probably be done if you're smart enough. There's a small user community, and they communicate via online. I found that whenever I ask a question, it's like answered like within a day. You know, so there's a bit of a learning curve with the program because there's not much. There is a manual that comes with it, but it's you can use it in basic ways though, and that can be pretty cool. It works on Mac and PC, and it also supports touch, so I can actually go up to my screen and I can touch this button. So right now my laptop's kind of far away from me, but maybe in a performance setting, I don't know, it might be cool. Rotator, yeah, so this one has 8 steps, and you can see the intervals of the steps here. It's got 3 rotating steps and one, I think, one melody step, so, or constant structure step. Yeah, it's I tend to make rotates. Usually, I try to figure out what the voicings I want on the piano first, and then try to then write the intervals down, and then put them in. That seems to be the best way. These are on separate MIDI channels going out to some instances of Dune, and it's kind of all the same kind of sound, the same preset in Dune. So it kind of, but you could use different sounds. Sometimes that actually works really great. So let's try another rotate. This is a simple one. This one, let me see. This one is just 2 steps. It's fun to use rotates to kind of songwrite a little bit, and that's something I did with. Let's see here. This one. That one became a song Forecast, so I kind of came up as a rotate, and then the rotate inspired the melody. And the harmony reminds me a little of Wayne Shorter. It's like kind of sus chord, minor chord, kind of going in between these kind of sounds. But yeah, again, I kind of planned the voicings out and then programmed that into the rotator. That one, I'm playing that rotate in patch, but instead of using a rotator, I've got it in MIDI chords, the plug-in here. Let me see if I can open that. So I've got it all mapped out to just playing a chromatic scale. That way I can be sure that I get the specific voicings. Well, you get the idea. Looping is something I'm a bit new to, so I'm trying to get into it. But it is a lot of fun once you have the sounds kind of set up, and those are just some little Dune patches. So let's see, what else? Oh yeah, I wanted to show this. This is a fun thing that you can do with Lucene is just doing. Let's see. I'm gonna go to. So this is a kind of a chord. It's more like a harmonizer instead of a rotator, and so you can set up keys, scales, and constrict to scale, and have different intervals going in. So it's like a harmonizer. And I can change keys and also configurations of mutes and intervals with presets. So there's a video of me, in the Eway group where I kind of do this. It's kind of based on my song Forecast. So that's a lot of fun. It's also nice, the soft step is handy for that because it is a kind of a octave of a MIDI keyboard. You can see easily with your feet, you know, what notes you're stepping on, and you don't have to remember, oh yeah, this is for. So I put the key of the note with. So if I press a C, I know I get a C7. If I press a G, I get a G7. Sometimes if I press a B, well, that's kind of related to diminished. I'm thinking like B7, A flat 7, F7, D7. So I'm going to be, the B gives me that diminished sound on a D7, you know. So that's kind of how I use it. There's even a function to turn off all the harmonization and just have a single note. So that is kind of a fun thing. And here's Niall. Everybody, say hello to Niall. This is Pigment. Serum, I wanted to show this. Serum is a great synth for This one is kind of interesting because it has a drone in the background, and let me just get you into this. Right here, there's a drone and a duduk wavetable, and the duduk is in a tuning, so it's in an Arabic tuning. You could load tuning files up here. Whoop, not here, up here. Load tuning. So I loaded an Arabic tuning file for that, and it saves with the preset, so that's pretty cool. I like that. And then, let's see. That's the duduk with no tuning file. It's cool because wavetables they're almost samples, but they're not samples, but they give a quality of the sound. So it's kind of in between a sample and a synth, and they have nice timbres. Let's see. fun to bring in loops, change loops, have it be synchronized, mute things, and I'm still practicing all of this, but it's nice that it seems to be working, that the looper stays in sync with the computer. The computer's not sweating too hard because I'm not trying to do everything in the computer, and that seems to help me. Let's just take a quick look at the peak. I just wanted to show a couple of sounds on that because that's new for me and kind of exciting. So this is just a basic saw, the most basic patch, but the response is really what is different for me, especially with the CV. I mean, it's like immediate. Now I have the wireless Midi going to, what is that box called? The Panda Midi beam, and that goes into the computer and then into the peak. But the CV goes directly from the new rad to the peak, and so you get that the attack is really great. I find that's really what sets it apart from the regular soft synths on the computer. It's hard to get. You can't get that kind of response. It's more like a horn almost. Yeah, it's fun to use the plus pedal for those kinds of things. That's just a mono patch, but you can get kind of held things, but it's a little different sound. I like for kind of ambient type things. Let's see some other sounds here. This is a poly patch on the Novation peak. So you can go into poly mode here. The thing I like about poly mode is that you really can't glitch. You know, I'm still a bit of a glitcher. I have to admit, after playing the instrument for a few years, I still glitch. And practicing with poly mode on and sustain, if you glitch, the chord doesn't voice properly. So it is a kind of a good test of how clean you can play. You know. Let's see. You can get some kind of nastier patches too. Let's see here. I find that what I like best actually for, I like running through cabinet simulation to get guitar sounds, because just a distortion on a synth is not quite as fat as some of the cabinet amp simulation. So those things can be kind of nice to try. Let's see. This was I always have to have a few of these kind of patches. I call that EH funk for Eddie Harris. The peak can have some pretty nice. Can have some pretty nice, big fat unison patches like. I hope this doesn't tweak my input too much. The peak also can do some, if you send MIDI, right now I'm just sending it from the computer. I'd like to find a way to do it without using a computer, but for now, this is, there are some, Johan has built in some basic rotational stuff. I also like using this. I'm going to use an instance of Cthulhu, which is a MIDI. Let me just show it here. It's a MIDI chord plugin, and it's pretty cool. You can just assign voicings for each note. And let me see here. give you a little idea of some of the things possible. It wasn't great performances or anything, but just trying to demonstrate some stuff. So hopefully that's useful to some people. And great. All right. Thanks very much, Itai.